Right.
What role do you think the FOPs, the Fraternal Orders of Police, and police unions play in this whole situation?
Wow. It's very dangerous. These police unions, the Fraternal Order of Police, the FOP, because generally speaking, these are the white supremacist heads. Okay, they're the ones that want to keep the status quo, where the police are looked at like as gods, heroes, or however the American public is brainwashed to see them as. Okay, they're the ones that say, no, we're not going to make our information public. We want to keep the police officers' names secret, when they kill someone, so that there's no accountability, so that they can continue killing with impunity. No, that's bullshit. We need to change this, because we need to be able to show in these modern technological times that there are repeat officers that continue to kill, and kill. And so it's not uncommon out in LA, for example, an officer out there in Los Angeles, one in one of the cases that I was involved in, that had killed 7 people. What the hell is this guy
Whoa.
doing still being a cop? 7 people? Yeah, I can maybe understand one, maybe even 2. Okay, but 7? Okay, this guy is bloodthirsty. He wants to kill. And an officer like that, should be removed from that type of position when you have an officer that's having these multiple shootings. I mean, there's got to be something wrong there. And at least for a respect for the public, this officer should be put on desk duty, or something out. But yep, there he is. He's out there working the streets and killing people for a living.
Wow. Are quotas real? Because the police department and their unions say there's no such thing as quotas. But we have officers come out and say there were. Did you have quotas when you were an officer?
They used to have a saying called "a greenie a day will keep the sergeant away." So we had to get at least one ticket, is what they meant. But we would be rated on our reports, the employee reports, as to how we were averaging with giving citations. And sometimes there would be a comment in there, okay, he needs to do a little bit more tickets, he needs to do a little bit more of this type of work. But I really didn't see it at that time more as me being out there and giving people tickets. And being in South Central Los Angeles, being in Rampart, that was really the least of our problems back then, because there was a lot of killings, gang violence, drug infestation, particularly around the area of MacArthur Park, which back then when I came on, it was the West Coast capital for the sales of raw cocaine. And so I didn't focus too much on giving, somebody a jaywalker ticket. Not that I would have given them one, because I jaywalked myself. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even, go out there really busting, drunken drivers either, because, I would have been a hypocrite too. And so I didn't really focus on that. My thing was, after a couple of years, I became a narc, and I began to work undercover, working in that cesspool environment, where I came in contact with a guy named Rafael Perez and David Mack, both of them infamous characters,
Yeah.
who became, the focus of the Rampart scandal, which later on led to the 2000 Academy Award movie Training Day, played by Denzel Washington, who himself, won Best Actor for his depiction of Rafael Perez. And so, I mean, it's a very, very nefarious environment. Again, toxic here within law enforcement. I don't think that they talk about it as much as they should, because working and being around crime and violence and seeing murders and things like that, it takes its toll on the human mind, Tim. And some people will probably be saying, well, they should be able to handle it if they can. Well, they shouldn't be cops. Well, that might be true, yes, they shouldn't be police officers like me, for example. I was very traumatized. I shouldn't have been a cop anymore. But they leave you there, okay? Because no police officer is going to lose their $100,000 plus with overtime a year job. Okay, no one's going to say, oh, you know what? I'm having these thoughts of going out and beating these people for no reason, taking out my frustration, giving tickets just because someone's Mexican, or you think that they're unlicensed, or because they're driving while black, or whatever the case might be, whatever the hang of it. And so there's all these really twisted mental issues that are going on that no one ever talks about, because again, don't you know, the police is always right. Okay, and so this fallacy of, okay, they've raised their hand, they've taken the oath, it's a bunch of crap, because testifying is occurring every day, okay, within law enforcement. I mean, it's not necessarily every police officer, okay, but there's a high rate of fabrication that's going on within the system, which of course leads to people who've been in prison for umpteen years. We're talking 30, 40 years incarcerated behind bars, all on account because you were at the wrong place at the wrong time and some overzealous police officer said that you're guilty. I mean, how many cases do we have like that we've heard about? I myself personally am working on some cases like this where a young man was accused of killing someone, a woman, a mother, and being one of the shooters. Yet we're just finding out here 25 years later that there was no GSR after the gunshot residue test was taken of his hand. So what does that mean? Okay, it means that he's innocent because they caught the guy immediately. And you know as well as I do that these particles, they go out into thousands of tiny little particles. They hit the hand. There wouldn't have been any time for this guy to wash off any of the gunshot residue. His hands would have been caked, his body, his face, for shooting this person. And of course, there was not one single piece of GSR, that could have shown that he had been the shooter. So again, we have these crooked cops. As a matter of fact, the cop that arrested him, also an LAPD officer, got fired for fabricating in another case. So if he fabricated in another case, what makes us think that he didn't do the same thing with this individual?
Exactly. Yeah, I just last week I did an interview with Nolan Hack, an activist out here, and we were talking about the Kevin Cooper case. It's a guy who's been in jail for 30 plus years for a quadruple homicide with 3 or 4 different weapons used. And they arrested the black guy. And even though there was all kinds of evidence for these white people or maybe, some lighter skinned people, that they just totally ignored it to protect prosecutors. And it's a whole bunch of political stuff involved into it. It's a crazy story. But I think this happens a lot more than when we think, or than the average people might think,
Absolutely. Yeah. No one really has a clue. When I became a police officer, I thought I was going to be joining like a Adam 12, Dragnet style department, just the facts, ma'am, and being there for the people. But it turned out to be some crazy circus sideshow, of going on there. And in one case, I saw a police officer just beat someone for no reason. And the guy was begging, just begging for his life and screaming, didn't have no weapon, wasn't being aggressive or anything. He had just basically backtalked this cop, and this officer lost him and lost control, broke some bones. I'm horrified, and all these other pigs were just laughing. They were smiling. And when I use the word pig, I used to not use it because it's a very strong word. But I mean, it is what it is when you have these individuals that are laughing and smiling as they're inflicting pain upon people and not caring. And I became that type of individual too. And I have to say it because that's the only way we get better. I've had a lot of people, haters, of course, that say, "Oh, you're still a pig." But and maybe in their eyes I am, but what I've done here has been for over 17 years now, conducting many high-profile investigations involving the killing of people. Most recently, this big case here involving Andy Lopez, which I was on, where a child 14 years old was murdered. So. We need to, continue speaking out, even though it's embarrassing, for other police officers to come forward and they're kind of like, some of them are like, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to say anything. And so that's the deal there,
Yeah.